they really didn't understand what the word graffiti meant.
They didn't. The studio executives generally are not the most sophisticated people in the world. And you will find that if you go to Hollywood. I hope you don't, because you don't want to be oppressed by people who are not as smart as you are. And I'm dumb. And
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away,
So it's interesting to note there's a rumor out there, I don't know where it came from, and I don't necessarily take it seriously, that George Lucas wants back in with Lucasfilm and he wants full control. From what I have heard, he's been involved with Ahsoka. There's photograph evidence of it. He's been involved with The Mandalorian. There's photograph evidence of that, too. My opinion is, okay, whatever. Here's the reason why I made this video today. The prequel haters, the sheep that decided the moment they saw Jar Jar Binks that George had ruined their childhood, are out there bashing him and using that rumor. And they have absolutely no respect for the fact that they wouldn't be there bitching about him if he hadn't created Star Wars. We're talking about a group of people who live their lives on YouTube and X and Facebook who haven't done anything in their whole lives. They're not creative. So what they did to the prequel trilogy, they bullied and attacked Jake Lloyd, who has had mental problems and emotional issues ever since. They went after Hayden Christensen, bitching about how whiny he was. You know, I remember one of the reasons why I didn't like Luke Skywalker is that he was whiny, okay? But for some reason, Mark Hamill gets away with it, and Hayden does not. Now, it looks to me like a vast majority of the fans have welcomed Hayden back in. I'm going to admit it. When I took my nephew to see The Phantom Menace, I was horrified. I didn't like it. I didn't think that it was written in the way it should have been. But of course, I'm not George Lucas, and he shared enough of his thoughts about why he wanted to do it the way he did it. You know, he made it for the kids, but he also made it for the parents their parents who'd seen the original trilogy. Okay. It's really interesting to me that watching these people still screaming about the prequels and then seeing how many of them like the sequels, because some of them do. When you look at them and say, you know, if you'd have kept your mouth shut, if you'd have just kind of backed off and let it alone, George never would have sold to Disney, and we wouldn't have Kyle Ron, the daddy butcher. We wouldn't have Rey, the bestest Evar. Okay, they wouldn't exist. But the prequel haters are part of this, okay? George Lucas did not ruin your childhood. Everything he created in the prequels did not contradict the OT at all, okay? It did not contradict the OT at all. However, your bitching and moaning through various media sources like Red Letter Media, which is the first gonzo, moron, fat, fanboy, asinine bitch session, circle jerk, and Hollywood media itself, you guys are part of the reason why we got the sequel trilogy. Okay, I have every right to blame you for that. Here's why I have an appreciation for the prequels, because I went to see The Force Awakens, and The Force Awakens bothered me. tried to rationalize that I liked it, but the tearing apart of Han and Leia, the fact their son butchered Han like a dog on a catwalk, and J.J. Abrams, like a fucking retard, gave Han a villain's death that he didn't deserve. The casting of Adam Driver, my dog shits nicer looking things than Adam Driver is. And the creation of the most wooden, basic, boring Mary Sue character that ever existed, the least popular character in Star Wars, Mary Ray Sue. Okay. You can't rationalize it. You can't lie about it. So I got the flu and I was home. I couldn't go to see the horse. I couldn't go. And I couldn't go to the gym. So I camped out on my sofa and I watched episodes 1 through 6. And by the time I got done with Revenge of the Sith, I liked the prequels. You know, The Attack of the Clones is not a great movie, but it does not deserve the hate it got. And I think some of the things that were going on there were too deep for people at Red Letter Media and other outlets to understand. Okay, the Jedi is supposed to give up attachments. All right, an attachment is you are mine. I am not going to let you die. I am not going to let my mother die. All right, I'm going to figure out a way to save my wife from death. All right, and Anakin's hubris, but these people are so full of hubris themselves, and they were given by misled fans too much power over the thought processes of the fans to understand that they are hubris-filled jackasses too. They are the ones, in lots of ways, that created Kyle Ron, Daddy Butcher. They created Mary Sue, Palpatine. Okay, they are the ones. All right, so let's talk about this further.
Pardon me. I have to go poke out my mind's eye.
These are my kids. So
All those Star Wars films.
all the Star Wars films.
They were your kids.
Yeah, well, they are my. I loved them. I created them. I'm very intimately involved in them, and obviously to
And
sell
you
them
sold
off.
them.
I sold them to the white slavers that take these things and.
Okay, but having said all that and having talked to you.
So the story goes, and this is how I've heard it. Ichibaka did go into great detail about why George sold Lucasfilm to Disney. First off, Mayor and County would not let him expand Lucasfilm there. But it's a little deeper than that. When you look at how the fans treated him, Red Letter Media Red Letter Media is basically the Fandom Menace before the Fandom Menace existed. Their sole purpose is to bitch and moan and attack George Lucas, mostly, for ruining their fucking childhoods. Because they couldn't accept that he did everything the way he wanted to. Maybe he should have had a collaborator and different directors directing these shows. Marcia Lucas in the J.W. Rinsler bio of Marcia Lucas interviewed for J.W. Rinsler's biography of Howard Kazanjian, basically didn't like the prequels. And George didn't have somebody to tone it down. And he, of course, admitted later that he probably did go too far. People didn't respond well to Ahmed Best's Jar Jar Binks. But when you watch it again, at least Phantom Menace, it's not bad. But people like this little circle jerk of angry boys who've never done anything in their lives, were relentless in their assaults on Lucas. Okay, and had it not been for them perhaps he would have kept Lucasfilm. We would not have the sequel trilogy, and there would not be the tragedy that has befallen the Star Wars franchise. Okay, that's it. I mean, George, until Bob Iger told him, the company's not worth $1 billion because you don't have movies in the pipe. So George took out 3 different script treatments, and Bob Iger looked at him, said they're too deep in the lore, and threw them away. All right? This is a product of bureaucracy. This is also the results of fanboys acting like assholes on a new medium called the internet and not being able to stop themselves because they're not face-to-face with the thing they hate the most or the person they blame. And if they were face-to-face with the person they blame, they wouldn't be acting like this. If you look at the way the Fandom Menace is behaving now towards Ahsoka, towards Kenobi, towards Mandalorian Season 3, towards the Book of Boba Fett, the Fandom Menace is no more than an extension of the bitch sessions that went on during the prequel trilogy at Red Letter Media. Okay, Bob Iger is now taking the brunt of this because he was the one that made the decisions to not use George's scripts or script treatments. He's the one that basically put a deadline on when a movie had to be finished instead of letting Michael Arndt take what he had and move it along slowly. Okay. He's the one that chased out Michael Arndt. And don't even get me started on the things I've heard about Kathleen Kennedy. All right. I mean, when you've got a somebody who's a big name on the phone with their friend, Bob Iger, saying, fire the fucking bitch. That's a big deal, okay? That's a big deal, all right? And it really hits home at just how much power the fans had that we got to this place, okay? And look, I think everybody who hated the prequels needs to take a good hard look and examine their souls, examine their conscience on this. If you actually really loved Star Wars, then you're going about it the wrong way. If you don't, if you attack George Lucas for the prequels and turn around, ironically, and attack Disney for the sequels because you created the sequels. You created them. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, had Red Letter Media not existed, had the internet in its form back then not existed, I would say that George never would have sold Lucasfilm. I would posit that George maybe would have had 3 more movies. Maybe they would have gone and explored the history of the Jedi and the Sith Order. Had different animated stuff, but we would not be where we are. And the reason why we're where we are is that there's no place for people like me to say, why don't you shut the fuck up to these people? Okay. They hating everything, no matter what, because it was made by Disney, has become a sport for them. And again, hating the prequels, Red Letter Media, the trades, the magazines and fan stuff back then are part of the reason why we got the sequel trilogy. And, I'm going to say this, a lot of people who like the prequels also like the sequels because George didn't have anything to do with them. And when you go on to Star Wars meme board on Facebook and you go on to other things and you see, these overweight, bearded oinks attacking the prequels and trying to defend the sequels, they are incapable of seeing that they did this themselves. All right. And look, these are the kinds of people who've never read a book. And if they do, it has to be written out in crayon. Okay. These are the kinds of people who they don't have real jobs. They're not adults. I think we have a really bad epidemic with young men, or men in general, between the age of 50 and 20, acting like teenagers online. They are bullies. They behave irrationally. You look at the Fandom Menace, it's exactly what's going on. All right? And of course, there's the women. You got the Raylos, you've got the Lesbos and their female enablers running around screaming that Star Wars should be femme-centric, and it never was. And look, the prequel haters, the sequel haters on the Phantom Menace, I'm not one of them. I hate the sequels, but I do not care for not arbitrary hatred. I do not care for hatred that is like coming out of a sawed-off shotgun. The lack of critical thinking, either side, the Phantom Menace or the prequel haters, is really stunning to me. But again, that's the internet. And look, it's also a fight. They all want to be popular, and they all think they're friends with each other. They're not, okay? If you're popular in any way, shape, or form anywhere, you're probably a very lonely person when you think about it, all right? It is better to be true to yourself and to have a close circle of comrades than it is to have a bunch of people worshiping you where you have to perform for them like a monkey and say shit they want to hear, okay? That's not how you get through life. Basic truths are sometimes you're going to hear shit you don't want to hear, but you need to hear it for your own good. And prequel haters who basically are part of the reason why George sold Lucasfilm and the way they treated him. George Lucas ruined my childhood. So pathetic. Are part of the blame for where the franchise is now. And the sequel haters that belong to the Fandom Menace who shotgun hatred at everything Disney's done, no matter if it's good or not, they're unreasonable and irrational. They all deserve each other, okay? They all deserve each other. And how do you get the narrative away from them? Announce Kennedy's gone. Announce she's retiring. You're looking for a new president of Lucasfilm. Jon Favreau's the interim creative director, okay? AKA, he's the boss right now. And that's what you do. That's all you do. But for some reason, Bob Iger, who's watching Disney stock right now, become very unstable. It was $79 the last time I looked at it today. He's not going to do anything for it. He's not going to say anything for whatever stupid asinine reason he's got. So this is Steph signing out. I'll see you around the galaxy.